It was a beautiful sunny morning in Peppa Pig's garden. Peppa and George were playing their favorite game, Catch the Butterfly. Catch it, George. Catch the sparkly butterfly. George, with his little arms outstretched, giggled as he tried to keep up. But then, Peppa noticed something odd. A shadow, not quite like any shadow she'd seen before, flickered at the edge of their garden. George, look, what's that? George, distracted by the butterfly, didn't seem to notice. Peppa squinted. The shadow seemed to stretch and shrink, as if dancing in the breeze, but there was no breeze. Peppa, always a brave little pig, decided to investigate. She tiptoed towards the fence, her heart doing a tiny thump thump thump. As she got closer, the shadow seemed to pull back, as if shy. Hello? Is anyone there? Silence. The shadow was gone, but on the ground, where it had been, was a small, smooth, glowing pebble. It pulsed with a soft, gentle light. Peppa carefully picked up the pebble. It was warm to the touch. She'd never seen anything like it. It wasn't a toy, and it certainly wasn't from their garden. Look, George, a magic pebble. George stopped chasing the butterfly and waddled over, his eyes wide with curiosity. He poked the glowing stone with his finger. Peppa, George, what have you found? Mummy Pig and Daddy Pig had come out to see what all the excitement was about. Their smiles faded when they saw the glowing pebble. This is unusual. I've never seen a rock quite like this. Daddy Pig, usually so confident, seemed a little perplexed. As Daddy Pig held the pebble, its glow intensified, casting strange, dancing patterns on their faces. The air around them felt different. Not cold, not hot, just different. It's getting brighter. George clutched Peppa's hand, a tiny whimper escaping him. They both felt a shiver, not from cold, but from something unknown. Just as suddenly as it brightened, the pebble's glow faded, and for a fleeting moment, the mysterious shadow reappeared behind the fence, larger this time, almost waving, before vanishing completely. Well, that was peculiar. Mummy Pig picked up the now ordinary-looking pebble. It was just a regular stone again. Do you think it was a friendly shadow? Peppa looked back at the fence, a thoughtful expression on her face. She wondered if the shadow would ever return. The Peppa Pig family went back inside, the garden looking just as it always did. But the memory of the glowing pebble and the mysterious shadow lingered, a little secret between them and the garden. Mysterious shadow. Later that night, Peppa looked out her window. She thought she saw a faint shimmer in the distance, just beyond their garden fence. Was it just the moonlight, or was the mysterious shadow still out there, watching? Only time would tell. The garden slept under the stars, but a tiny, almost invisible speck of light pulsed softly near the fence, a silent promise of future mysteries. Peppa and George were fast asleep, dreaming of butterflies and adventures. Unbeknownst to them, a faint glow emanated from under Peppa's pillow, where she had hidden the pebble. The pebble, now dull to the eye, still held a tiny spark of its mysterious light, waiting for another day. As the night deepened, the pebble's glow intensified ever so slightly, a silent beacon in the darkness. Outside, the mysterious shadow, now a bit clearer, observed the house from a distance, its form shifting like smoke. It lingered near Peppa's window, a silent, watchful presence. A wispy hand seemed to reach out towards the house, but it never quite touched. As dawn approached, the shadow dissipated into the night, leaving only the faint, persistent glow from the pebble within the house. The mystery of the garden continued. It was a beautiful, sunny afternoon in Peppa Pig's garden. Peppa and George were playing their favorite game, Muddy Puddles. Even though there wasn't a single puddle in sight, their laughter echoed through the air, a sound of pure, innocent joy. Suddenly, Peppa paused. Her keen pig eyes, usually so focused on fun, caught a glimpse of something unusual in the distance. A faint shimmer, deep within the whispering woods, a place Mummy Pig and Daddy Pig had always told them to avoid. George, ever the playful little brother, tugged at her dress, eager to continue their game. But Peppa was transfixed. The shimmer seemed to call to her, a silent, mysterious invitation. Against her better judgment, and ignoring George's protests, Peppa slowly walked towards the edge of the woods. With each step, the shadows seemed to lengthen, embracing her in their cool, silent embrace. The cheerful butterflies had vanished, leaving an unsettling quiet. A shiver ran down Peppa's spine. Her heart pounded like a drum against her ribs. A single tear escaped her eye, tracing a path down her cheek. Yet she felt an irresistible pull, a strange compulsion to enter the forbidden woods. As Peppa stepped into the whispering woods, the world around her transformed. The trees, once distant and benign, now loomed, their gnarled branches twisting into skeletal fingers, clawing at the darkening sky. The vibrant green grass was replaced by a carpet of decaying leaves. George, finally understanding the gravity of the situation, cried out for his sister. His voice, usually so boisterous, was now a trembling whisper. He stood at the edge, torn between his fear and his love for Peppa. Peppa turned, her face a ghostly pale. She extended a hand towards George, a silent plea for him to join her. But her eyes, usually so full of life, were now vacant, distant, as if she were no longer truly there. Despite his overwhelming fear, George took a tentative step into the woods. The air grew colder, chilling him to the bone. A faint, mournful whisper, like the sigh of a forgotten spirit, drifted through the trees. Hand in hand, Peppa and George ventured deeper. The shimmer, which had drawn Peppa in, was now a pulsating, eerie light, emanating from a clearing ahead. It beckoned them, promising answers, but hinting at something far more sinister. They reached the clearing. In its center stood a single, ancient, withered tree, its branches bare and twisted. It glowed with the strange, otherworldly light, and upon its bark, unsettling symbols were carved, symbols that seemed to writhe and shift before their very eyes. The symbols on the tree seemed to pulse with a life of their own, their forms subtly shifting. A low, guttural hum, deep and resonant, emanated from the ancient wood, vibrating through the very ground beneath their feet. Peppa, as if in a trance, slowly reached out her hand towards the glowing tree. Her fingers trembled, but an unseen force seemed to guide her, compelling her to make contact. The moment Peppa's fingers brushed the ancient bark, the light intensified, blinding them both. A distorted, high-pitched wail, filled with unimaginable sorrow and despair, ripped through the air. George instinctively covered his ears, his small body shaking with terror. Peppa's eyes rolled back into her head, and she collapsed to the ground, unconscious. The eerie light from the tree dimmed, as if its purpose had been fulfilled. George, his heart aching with fear and desperation, rushed to Peppa's side. He gently shook her, tears streaming down his face, calling her name again and again, but she remained unresponsive. It was a dark and stormy night at Peppa's house. The wind howled through the trees, and rain pattered against the windows. Peppa and George were supposed to be sleeping, but strange sounds were coming from the attic above their bedroom. "Peppa, George, did you hear that? It sounds like footsteps, but Mummy and Daddy are downstairs watching television. Who could be walking around up there?" "George, dinosaur scared. The sounds are getting louder, Peppa. Maybe we should tell Mummy and Daddy about the noises in the attic." But as they crept toward their bedroom door, the sounds suddenly stopped. The house fell into an eerie silence, broken only by the storm outside. Peppa felt a chill run down her spine. "Peppa, the silence is even scarier than the noises, George. Something doesn't feel right. The air feels different, colder, like something is watching us from the shadows." Suddenly, a long, dark shadow appeared under their bedroom door. It moved slowly, as if searching for something. The shadow had no owner that they could see. "George, Peppa, look at the shadow. It's moving by itself. Shadows aren't supposed to move without someone making them. This is very, very scary. Peppa, we need to be brave, George. Maybe it's just a tree branch casting shadows from the storm outside. But why does it look like it has long, thin fingers reaching toward us? The shadow began to grow larger and darker, creeping under the door and spreading across their bedroom floor. It seemed to be alive, moving with purpose and intelligence. Peppa, George, hide under the blankets. The shadow is getting bigger. It's covering our toys, our books, everything, and it feels so cold wherever it touches. From somewhere in the darkness, they heard a whisper. It was soft and distant, but unmistakably calling their names. Peppa, George, come to the attic. George, did you hear that, Peppa? Someone is calling our names. But the voice sounds strange, like it's coming from very far away, or from somewhere that doesn't exist. Peppa, we shouldn't go to the attic, George. Mommy and Daddy always said never to go up there alone. But the voice keeps calling us. Sounds familiar but wrong somehow. Despite their fear, curiosity began to overcome them. The mysterious voice continued to call, growing slightly louder each time. Come and play. Come and see what's waiting for you. Peppa, maybe we should just peek. Just a quick look to see what's making those sounds. We'll stay together, and if anything scary happens, we'll run straight to Mommy and Daddy. They crept out of their room and toward the attic stairs. Each step creaked loudly in the scary Peppa Pig episode that never made it on TV. It was a perfectly ordinary Tuesday morning when Peppa woke up in her bedroom. But something felt different. The sunlight seemed dimmer than usual, casting strange shadows across her pink walls. As she got dressed, she noticed her reflection in the mirror was smiling even though she wasn't. Downstairs, Mummy Pig was making breakfast, but her movements were too precise, too mechanical. When she turned to greet Peppa, her smile stretched just a little too wide across her face. Daddy Pig sat reading his newspaper, but the pages were completely blank. His glasses reflected nothing, creating two dark voids where his eyes should be. When he spoke, his voice echoed as if coming from somewhere far away. George was at the table, clutching his dinosaur toy, but the toy's eyes had changed. They followed Peppa as she moved around the room, and its plastic smile had become more sinister. After breakfast, the family visited Grandpa Pig's garden. But as they walked down the familiar path, the trees grew taller and their branches reached down like gnarled fingers. The flowers had turned black, their petals falling like tears. Grandpa Pig was tending to his vegetables, but the carrots and potatoes had faces carved into them, all wearing the same unsettling grin. His boat rocked gently in the pond despite the absence of any wind. When they returned home, Peppa's friends came to visit. Susie Sheep arrived first, but her wool was matted and gray, and she spoke in whispers. Rebecca Rabbit hopped into the garden, but her ears drooped unnaturally. Pedro Pony galloped over, but his hooves made no sound on the ground. All of Peppa's friends gathered in a circle, but their shadows pointed in different directions despite the single sun overhead. As the day wore on, the house itself began to change. The yellow walls started to pulse like a heartbeat, and the purple sofa seemed to breathe. The television turned on by itself, showing only static. The family portrait on the wall began to shift, with the painted figures moving their eyes to watch whoever walked by. The stairs creaked with footsteps even when no one was climbing them. When evening came, the sun set too quickly, plunging the world into darkness. The stars formed patterns that hurt to look at directly, and the moon wore the same wide smile. As Peppa prepared for bed, she looked in her mirror one last time. Her reflection waved goodbye, but Peppa's own hand remained at her side. The reflection's smile grew wider until it filled the entire mirror. The next morning, everything returned to normal, but Peppa couldn't shake the feeling that somewhere, in another reflection, another version of her family was still smiling those two wide smiles. Scary Peppa Pig episode that never made it on TV. It was Tuesday morning when Peppa woke up, but something felt different. The sunlight seemed dimmer, casting strange shadows across her pink walls. Her reflection in the mirror was moving just a fraction too late. Downstairs, Mummy Pig was making breakfast in eerie silence. Her eyes never blinked, and her smile seemed frozen. George sat staring at his cereal bowl, but the milk inside was slowly turning black. Daddy Pig entered with glasses reflecting only darkness. His voice echoed from somewhere far away. The family sat for breakfast, but nobody ate. They just moved their spoons in endless circles, creating rhythmic scraping sounds. At playgroup, Peppa's friends stood perfectly still in a circle. Susie Sheep's wool had turned gray, her eyes becoming hollow black holes. Pedro Pony's mane hung lifeless. When Peppa spoke to them, they turned in unison, mouths opening to reveal rows of sharp teeth. The playground equipment moved on its own. Swings swayed with no one on them, creaking haunting melodies. The slides stretched impossibly long into a dark tunnel. The seesaw rocked faster and faster. Madame Gazelle stood with antlers grown into twisted branches scraping the ceiling. When she opened her mouth to sing, only low growls emerged. Children's drawings on the wall transformed into dark, twisted images. Peppa realized she was the only normal one. Everyone else moved like puppets on invisible strings. The sky had turned sickly green, clouds forming grinning faces. The school bell rang with deep, ominous tolls. Her friends walked toward her with jerky movements. Their eyes had turned completely black, speaking in unison with voices not their own. Peppa tried to run, but hallways became a maze. Every door led to the same classroom where Madame Gazelle waited with her twisted smile. Walls closed in, floors tilted impossibly. Finally, Peppa found herself home, but everything was wrong. Furniture in same places but slightly off. Colors too bright, shadows too dark, silence too complete. In her room, Peppa looked in the mirror. Her reflection smiled back, but Peppa wasn't smiling. The reflection waved while Peppa stood frozen. Then the reflection stepped out, and Peppa realized she was trapped behind the glass. The episode ended with cheerful laughter echoing through the house, but Peppa knew nothing would ever be the same. Scary Peppa Pig episode that never made it on TV. It was a quiet evening at Peppa's house when something very strange began to happen. Peppa and George were playing in their bedroom when they noticed their toys moving by themselves. The teddy bears turned their heads slowly, their button eyes gleaming in the dim light. George's favorite dinosaur toy started making sounds it had never made before, low, rumbling growls that seemed to come from somewhere deep and dark. Peppa tried to tell Mummy Pig what was happening, but when she went downstairs, she found Mummy Pig standing perfectly still in the kitchen, her back turned. When Peppa called out, Mummy Pig slowly turned around, but her smile was too wide, stretching across her face in a way that made Peppa's stomach feel cold. Her eyes were completely black, like deep holes in her head. Daddy Pig was sitting in his chair reading the newspaper, but the newspaper was upside down, and he wasn't blinking, not even once. When Peppa spoke to him, he just kept reading, his lips moving silently as if he was whispering secrets to himself. The television was on, but it was showing the same image over and over, a picture of their house, but all the windows were dark except for one. In that window, a shadow was watching. George started crying, but his tears were black, and when they hit the floor, they made a sizzling sound. The house began to feel different, like it was breathing. The walls seemed to pulse gently, and the floorboards creaked in a rhythm that sounded almost like a heartbeat. All the family photos on the walls had changed in every picture. There was an extra figure standing behind the family, a dark shape that shouldn't have been there. The grandfather clock in the hallway started chiming, but it chimed 13 times instead of 12. With each chime, the lights in the house grew dimmer. Peppa grabbed George's hand and they ran upstairs, but the stairs seemed to go on forever, stretching higher and higher. Behind them, they could hear Mummy and Daddy Pig laughing, but it wasn't their normal laugh. It was hollow and echoing, like it was coming from very far away. When they finally reached their bedroom, they found that all their toys had arranged themselves in a perfect circle on the floor. In the center of the circle was a music box that had never been there before. It was playing a lullaby, but the melody was wrong, twisted and sad. The toys were all facing inward, toward the music box, as if they were watching it very carefully. Peppa and George hugged each other tightly as the music box slowly wound down. When the music finally stopped, everything went completely silent. Then, one by one, all the toys turned to look at them with eyes that glowed softly in the darkness, and they all began to smile the same too wide smile that Mummy Pig had worn downstairs.